Hey folks, welcome back to another video. You join me and my lovely smoothie up in the attic. I'm on a little bit of a health kick at the moment. I'm trying to put on weight, which is difficult for me, and trying to put on weight and eat healthily I find even harder. So by smoothies I'm enjoying at the moment. Not many calories in a smoothie, but you can chuck some yogurt and honey and stuff in there and some oats and things to bulk it out a little bit. So I'm a big fan. Eating fruit sadly doesn't come kind of naturally to me. I have to make a bit of an effort, and a smoothie's an easy way of getting that inside me. I'm up in the training room because I had a request to do a video on my sort of training setup, right? So I thought I may as well go through it, and I thought I'd just tie it in as well with kind of sort of goal setting, not in any great detail, but you know, as the title suggests, in my training room, and can it help me climb 8B? Well, the answer has to be yes, it can help, can't it? Because it's a training room and it's got some stuff in it, so it's got to be a good thing. But there might be a downside to it as well, and I'll kind of probably mention that towards the end of the video. The room itself, I've got the GoPro set up as well, so I might move around a little bit on this video, but the room itself is made up of two main elements really. You've got the sort of the bouldering wall, the board itself. It's only small. It's about, you know, in Old English, it's about 7 foot wide, and I can stand up in this room just about. So it's about 6 foot high. I'm 6'3". I have to. My head touches the ceiling, so it's sort of 6'3". So it's not massive, but it's so flipping useful. It's properly steep. It's like 55 degrees overhanging. There is only one reason I made it that steep. It's because I'm lazy and my DIY skills are pretty minimal. So all I did was I bought a sort of a joist finder thing off Amazon, found where the joists were, banged loads of screws in, and that's straight onto that lot. It's been up a couple of years now, so I'm not going to give any more DIY advice because it's just not my area of expertise at all. But it's still standing after 2 years, so I'm pretty happy with it. I've banged loads of extra screws in as well, just to be on the safe side. I do quite a lot on this board. My main session that I do on it is minute on, minute off, so you do like 10 reps of that. It's this proper pump central. When I first got this board up, I couldn't do a minute on it, no way. Thankfully I can now. One thing I have put on is like a little rail, I don't know if they're being shot or not, but a little rail at the bottom that's about an inch wide. So by having feet on that for some of the moves, it probably lessens the angle to more like 40 degrees. So it's still pretty steep, but it makes it a bit more manageable. But other times I keep my feet up high. Occasionally I'll come onto this. I've just banged a few holds over here as well, so you can sort of bridge out a little bit just to mix it up and get some different twisting going on. Left, right, up, down, clockwise, anti-clockwise, starting that side. It's such a useful tool. But I kind of switch off on it. It's not really about the climbing, it's just time hanging on. So it's all about the burn or whatever you're trying to achieve on that session. I do move the holds around occasionally, so there is a drill over in the corner, but I tend not to do too much with that. I just sort of mix up what holds I use really more than anything. I don't kind of boulder on it for fun. It's not entertaining enough for me. I'm sure some people could amuse themselves by setting different problems, but for me it's a getting on it, completely switching off, and then just doing whatever the sort of the training session is on it. And it's a proper gift, to be honest. I do use it for warming up, just doing a few moves or a few bigger moves or doing offset stuff. That's really useful. It's a great tool. Like I say, it is on the steep side, but I've kind of got used to it now, thankfully. The other main thing that I've got in here is the Fingerboard, so Crusher Matrix I think it's called. Lots of different pockets and edge sizes, from massive jugs at the top that I don't really use because I've got the board for that kind of thing, through to 1 finger pockets which I don't use just because I'm too weak for them, but everything in between that I probably use, from 2 finger pockets, little edges and all sorts. You see there's a load of scribbles on here, and some of the things are motivational comments like front 2 very weak, so it's a sort of a memory job for me to try and do that. Offsets, exclamation marks, I kind of forget to do offsets sometimes and I find them quite useful. Max move scribblings, I don't really do much of that these days, but it's nice to see some progression. I'll come on to that in a minute. One arm best max hang scores from, I don't even know when that is, March this year actually. And other things you'll see like here and over here, just some scribbles to know how many reps I've done or how many sets I've done and stuff. On the Fingerboard, which you might be able to see in shot, is also pretty DIY bodge central. It is up, and it's stayed up for a couple of years, so it's doing all right. Again, a couple of motivational messages: try harder, own it, useful things obviously. again, just bodging it, there's just screws into here. So what I can do is, I've got loads of sort of junk over here. I can hang my pulley onto it, and that just loops onto there. So I can give myself some assistance. So for example, when I do my one arm max hangs, I'm using some assistance, usually about 4 kilograms, depending on quite what I'm doing. Weights hang off one side, I pull on that, and the other hand does what it's supposed to do, and you swap sides. So that's just an easy way of swapping those over, nothing exciting really. Other kit that I've got to have up here to make that work are the weights themselves. So carefully, without injuring myself, lift those up. I've got all sorts here, from plates that I've got off an adjustable kettlebell through to these bigger ones that are 10 kgs. And there's the random little weight like this one here that's a kilogram, so I can really fine tune stuff. So that was from a repeater session I think yesterday, where I did added 16.5 kilos. There's other bits and pieces that I need as well. Harness, so if I'm adding weight, I dangle it off, and I've cut the leg loops off that, so it's just the waist bit, and I dangle it off the sort of the tie-in point. You can leave the legs on if you want, but don't find any benefit personally. Rock shoes, they're just retired ones from the that I'd use outside, and they've just got so rounded and stuff that they're not really any good. They're just starting to wear through. You could resole them, but I just use them in here until they're completely mashed, to be honest. So they last me flipping yonkies and yonkies. Other things, chalk, a plentiful supply of chalk, that's really important. There's another bag of chalk to top that up as well. Some silly things like the emery board thing. So that's just for when you get a rough bit of skin. I know that sounds a bit silly, but it does make a difference to hanging on the crusher board if you've got good skin. So yeah, I've got emery board or 2 up here. But again, hanging on the crusher board, got to brush it a lot because it can get pretty sweaty and slippy. I fired off it yesterday and smacked into the back wall, which swore a little bit after that. But yeah, it's just a brush. That's just a tatty one that came free with a chalk bag. So yeah, just brush the holds a lot. One downside of the crusher board is it hasn't got any really small edges. So I do, one of my sessions is a minimum edge hang session. So the smallest thing you can hang for, depends how many seconds, but normally 10 seconds. And I use a 6mm edge for that. Doesn't have it, so I've cut up these mountain training timing cards, which I highly recommend. They're very good, but they're also good for this. And they just pad out one of the holds to make it the exact size. So just out of shot there's a measuring tape as well, so I can really fine tune stuff. I'm just looking around if there's anything else in the boxes that I should have mentioned. I don't think there is. Just weights, and oh yeah, that's one last thing just for warming up, which is super important. The Theraband, okay, so you can do lots of your shoulder stuff and antagonistic stuff on your fingers, all that kind of jazz. Lots of warming up. This isn't a how to train video, but just make sure you warm up loads. I generally am pretty injury free, and I put that down to being really thorough with my warming up. On the floor in here, lots of bouldering mats just for when I do fall off there, but equally just for doing core workouts and stuff like that. It's nicer than doing it on a yoga mat. It's just super comfortable, and again, nicer than doing it on the carpet as well. They're the same ones I use outside, just fold them up and take them down as and when. I'm up in the attics. The dog can't get up here because it's a ladder to get up, and he's not allowed upstairs anyway. So it's nice just to have like an environment that when I'm doing core, for example, he's not jumping on top of me because he gets so excited and things like that. Also important, on a sort of a similar theme, it's just quite a nice place to be. It's the right sort of temperature. I've got a skylight just out of shot there as well, so I can open it up if it's too hot. It's dry. It's got a television in the corner, so I'll spin the GoPro around. You can see all my setup there as well, but a comfy chair for chilling out. TV in the corner for getting Netflix on, a load of stuff that probably should be elsewhere, but I can't really find a home for it. And that's really important for me, to have somewhere I want to be, right? There's a lot of resting in training in between reps and stuff, so having something on Netflix, on the telly, or whether it's music, if that's your thing, whatever it might be, having stuff to keep you amused, I think, is vitally important. As I was showing that round then, I spotted I've got a pull-up bar, and what I do is I put that over the hatch for the loft, so if I want to do power pull-ups or weighted pull-ups or whatever, I go down there and do them. So just don't really have the space up here for that. So can this help me climb 8B? Well, like I said, it's got to help, hasn't it? How can it not help as long as you put the time in? I come up here four sessions a week normally, and what I do is I record it all, so there's a few pages worth, that's sort of this year's stuff on there. I record every session, and I said about fine-tuning weights and stuff like that. On these sessions, I don't make loads of notes, but I'll put exactly what I added. So on the 20th of September, I did a repeater session, 6x6 with 10 kgs added. I'm adding a bit more than that now in the run up to Spain. And I'll put just a brief note, like I found it hard, I found it okay, it was easier than the last one, stuff like that. And it helps me track progression. And for me, that's really important. I find it really motivating to be able to look through, the past year, but actually downstairs I've got previous years as well, so I can look at those and see what my max hang score was. And okay, in 2000 whatever, and 7B was my best grade. What was my max hang through to last year? What's my max grade and what's my max hang? And what I was adding for repeaters. Has there been an improvement? And on the computer, I've got some graphs for certain things like foot-on campusing that are really useful for working out your strengths and weaknesses in terms of energy systems and stuff. So for me, that's key. Record everything. And as part of that goal setting, even by me, I've wanted to do 8B for this entire year that is about climbing 8B. So I've written 8B up there along with my try harder and stuff like that. There's 7C there. That's what I want to achieve for bouldering this year. It won't happen now because of various reasons, but I haven't got the time left now. But even by doing this video and saying 8B, putting it out there, for me that's motivating. For some people that won't be motivating, but goal setting, writing stuff down, I just think is really vital. If you don't actually have a little bit of thought and set those goals, it's really hard to then work towards achieving them. So you have to find what works for you. This works for me. So why might it not help me get 8B? Well, if there is a downside, you can be a bit lazy by coming up here instead of going to the climbing wall. So I know, for example, that my sort of pure endurance in climbing is probably actually pretty weak at the moment because I haven't spent time indoors doing lots of laps at the beacon, for example, where I think the wall's like 17 meters or something there. So doing 4x4s on there. So you can train endurance in your attic on a setup like this, but it is a bit trickier. So, and the wall, it's got things like the kilter board there. So the kilter board's a bit like a moon board. It lights up with set problems. There's a lifetime's worth of climbing at every possible grade. So it's really easy to train on in there and things like that. Do some lead climbing, do some cool bouldering and really mix it up a bit more. There's loads you can do on here, but it's easy to get sucked into skipping certain things because it's a bit trickier to train them. So if anything, it does stop me going to the wall quite as much as I should. But this year's been a bit funny for that anyway, obviously due to lockdown and stuff. But now for Wales, our lockdown ended, what day are we on? Tuesday, it ended yesterday. So I did go to the wall yesterday, and I will in the next couple of weeks go a bit more in the run up to hopefully getting to Spain, COVID allowing and everything. So I can just work over some weaknesses that are a bit harder to train up here. So perhaps that's a downside, but obviously it's with the best will in the world. Even if you are lucky enough to have a cool setup like this, and some people have even better setups, but I know I'm really privileged to have this, it only is going to help if you put the effort in. So 4 sessions a week for me up here, I have got stronger, have got fitter, so fingers crossed it will help me get to 8B this winter, but we'll see what we can do. I haven't set particular routes as such, just grades, because I have to get sucked into red pointing a project. I have to really enjoy the route. It's not just about the grade, it is about enjoying the route as well. And for example, my first 8A a couple of years ago, I think it's like 13 or 14 sessions it took me. It's really hard to commit 13 or 14, however many sessions, to a route you're not really enjoying. So I don't like to only pick routes that suit my style. When I did my first 8A, I didn't consider myself an 8A climber at that point. I kind of do now, although it's weird to think of it in that sense. But I've done a few different routes, some different 8As of very different styles. So a bit more well-rounded now, hopefully. So now I feel like I can sort of push on to slightly higher grades. It's nice to consolidate a little bit. Well, I hope that's been of interest. Do fire away with any questions as always. I'm happy to answer as best I can. Find us on Insta, find us on Facebook, click the like button, smash the subscribe button, find the t-shirt link if you want to buy a t-shirt, the buy me a coffee, all that jazz. Thank you so much for the continued support. It's just mind-blowing how well the channel is doing, and that's down to you guys, so massive thanks. I'm going to go and drink my smoothie before it comes all warm and horrible, because you're getting it'll probably go manky, you'll start to curdle or something disgusting. But like I say, fire away with questions. I hope you've enjoyed this video. More videos coming up very soon.